How's it going, meatheads? Meathead Moto here to pump up your motorcycle content. And we were gonna go for an actual ride today, but if you can see the flags, it is blowing like 30-mile-an-hour winds right now. And I was stubborn and I said I wanted to go and ride today, so I rode the bike to work, and now I'm like, we're gonna go home because it is blustery, to say the least. Thankfully, I'm going to be going with the wind, so maybe I'll actually get some decent gas mileage. I want to talk about riding two-up, riding with a passenger. My tips, my opinions, my get-started guide on how to ride two-up on a motorcycle. Obviously, this is going to be, it's going to be different for everybody because depending on the type of motorcycle you have, certain motorcycles are going to be easier to ride two-up on. Obviously, a bagger like this is pretty easy to ride two-up on. Most cruisers are pretty easy as well, depending on, you know, like suspension travel and all that. Sport bikes, you know, it's not going to necessarily be the most comfortable for the passenger, but I mean, it's doable. Anything that's like, you know, I wouldn't ride under 250 cc's as far as a motorcycle goes, but I mean, it's possible. You just probably won't get going very fast. What I want to talk about and what I want to mention as far as like riding two-up and my tips on riding two-up, and you know, it's always going to be difficult getting over the nervousness of riding two-up from the rider's perspective. There's just so much more risk that gets added when you have a passenger. Your stopping distance increases, your reaction times have to increase as well, follow times on cars in front of you. But what I really want to talk about is how making sure that when you have somebody on the back, that they are going to have as good enough time on the back as you do in the driver's seat. Oftentimes what happens is we have a good time, but if you get somebody on the back that's not experienced on a motorcycle or has never been on a motorcycle, and you just throw them in the deep end of the pool, they may never like riding a motorcycle again. So like, say a significant other, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you know, if they've never been on a motorcycle before and you just throw them in on the bike, you don't really give them any instruction on what their role is, what their job is, they're going to be scared and they're going to be concerned rather than having a good time. So what I like to do when I have anybody that gets on the back of my motorcycle is I want to run them through what I expect them to do first. So my first primary thing is these are your foot pegs. This is where you will rest your feet on, and you don't have to ever remove your feet from the pegs. Actually, it's best if you don't. So when I come to stop signs and stuff and I put my feet down, it's to balance the both of us. It's not because I'm stretching or anything. It's meant to be that I'm balancing us when we're stopped. You can take your feet off the pegs if you need to stretch or something, and you can do that at any time. If you need to do it while we're actually moving, that's fine. If you need to do it while we're stopped, just let me know. That's, you know, but otherwise, keep them on your pegs. Number 2, lean like I do. Don't go and stand or sit there like stiff while I'm riding. You just have to match my lean. I'm going to take it easy, and I'm not going to be throwing some Rossi moves out here where I'm trying to grind my floorboards against the ground. I'm trying to make sure you have a good time, but a little help is appreciated, so you match my lean. You know, that's a key thing from a passenger's perspective. Just match the lean. Relax. I know it's really hard as a passenger to relax, But if you're stiff, the whole bike feels stiff, and the turn into turns and all that just feels unresponsive because, you know, you're scared. You're sitting there like frozen in place and you don't know what to do. But again, that's why I'm running through this. Another thing is that if you do have to move around at all or adjust on the seat, please do it while we're moving. Bikes, motorcycles, bicycles are more stable when you're in motion because of the gyroscopic nature of wheels turning and all that. When we're moving forward, if you need to like adjust on your seat, like if we accelerated and now all of a sudden you're way too far back, or we had to take a stop and you slid forward, you know, adjust while we're moving because it's just safer that way. Then I don't have to try and balance the bike at a stop while you like shimmy around on the seat to find your comfy spot. Now, all these tips have been just towards the passenger. Another thing for the passenger to make sure you're comfortable is obviously wearing a good set of shoes, wearing comfortable pants that you're not all bound up on and they're not constricting, they're not uncomfortable. It's all about being comfortable while also being safe. You know, from the rider's perspective, things that I would give advice to riders that are considering riding two up, whether it's short distance or across the country, make sure that your bike is properly set up to handle two people. You know, if your bike has adjustable suspension preloads and all that, make sure it's adjusted properly so that it'll handle the two of you. There's nothing worse than having your suspension preload too light and then all of a sudden you hit a bump and you've actually bottomed out the suspension and now both of your tailbones hurt. You know, there's nothing worse than that. Another thing for a rider is you too have to also relax. It's just like riding solo. It's just like riding solo. And I'm coming up with this list because recently, as in yesterday, I had a friend on the back of the motorcycle. She's never been on the back. She's never ridden on a motorcycle before. And she was, at first, both her and I were nervous, even though I've ridden tons of times with my wife on the back. Like, I've had Brianna on the back of a Dyna, I've had her on the back of a sport bike. Like, by all means, I've ridden a lot of miles with somebody on the back, so it's not exactly new to me. But when you have somebody that's not used to being on the back of a motorcycle, it brings you right back to where you were, like you have never ridden with somebody on the back. Let's get into it a little bit. Going through that experience with somebody who's never had any experience on the back of a motorcycle, and me having a lot of experience with her on the back, I still was nervous about it because I wasn't sure how things were going to feel and how they were going to react. It's a different person. Are they going to understand what I mean by certain things? But it went off without a hitch, and in the end, it actually inspired her to consider actually learning to ride a motorcycle. And you know, if anything, your goal as a rider is to educate the person on the back that motorcycles aren't as scary as they're made out to be. You know, you gotta go in with that mindset. You don't want to scare the person on the back. Do you want to have fun? Yes. Do you maybe want to rip it a little bit and show them why it's addicting? Hell yeah. But do it safely. Like, when you're gonna rip it, make sure it's on an open piece of road. If you're going to get into corners, make it modest. Don't try to scrape pegs or try to drag a knee with somebody on the back. once you get to that point where you're comfortable with somebody on the back and they are comfortable being on the back, then you might want to, you can start pushing your limits. You know, you might want to start leaning harder and whatnot. My wife and I are very good at riding together, but it's taken a lot of years to get there. It's taken a lot of miles. It's taken a lot of like semi-scary moments where we judged corners wrong and we didn't work together right, and you know, we've made it through it, and now we're a really good pair when it comes to riding together. So my best advice to you, if you're looking or not looking, if you have a significant other, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or if you are a single person and somebody is interested in hopping on the back of your motorcycle, maybe just give them the quick rundown of like what you expect of them, and then show them a good time. Next thing you know, you might have a partner that's going to be on the back of your bike permanently, and then you can start worrying about the other stuff, like what seat you're running so that it's comfortable for the two, you know, yada yada yada. Or you might end up inspiring somebody else to get off the passenger pillion and be in the driver's seat, and they might be riding alongside you as a friend or as your wife or your husband, who knows. It goes both ways these days, and I think that like if we as riders can be much more open and being much more I don't know, not less so much like trying to scare people away from bikes. Like we try to make it more inclusive and let people understand that like motorcycles aren't as scary as they've been made out to be. We'll have way more riders on bikes beside us or on the back than we will have people in cars, and just have more people living life, I would say, rather than just existing. Because I feel personally that being on a motorcycle I live, but when I'm in a car I just exist. Alright, let's get a rip in. Up and over that hill, I felt my stomach go up and into my throat. Just a little whoop. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you can convince somebody else to hop on the back of your bike and show them a good time, and maybe inspire another person to learn to ride a motorcycle, or at least take some more time out and enjoy the adventures that you can have on a motorcycle. Until the next time, guys, peace out. Pump up your motorcycle riding by watching Meathead Moto on YouTube. Thanks a lot, guys.